Hello and welcome to my channel, MB Soundtopper UK, and the subject of this video will be my top 10 album additions in 2024. With between 70 and 80 albums being added to my collection in 2024, it's been an average sort of year. In spite of taking a few random punts when buying some albums, I can honestly say that I've enjoyed listening to most of what I've acquired. Naturally, there are some I prefer to others, and so this video will focus on my favourite 10. Therefore, no further explanation required. On we go. 10. Mendelssohn, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Opus 61 by Kathleen Battle, Frederica von Stade, Seiji Ozawa with the Boston Symphony Orchestra, and the Tanglewood Festival Chorus, released in 1994. Over the last couple of years, I thought it was about time I gave classical music more of a go. After all, there's a lot of prog rock I like that's heavily inspired by classical music. With Mendelssohn's A Midsummer Night's Dream, prior knowledge of Shakespeare's play isn't absolutely necessary in order to follow what's going on, as Judi Dench's excellent narration helps give an overview. Like many classical pieces, A Midsummer Night's Dream has a section which is embedded into the consciousness of the wider public. By that, I'm referring to the Wedding March, and in its proper context, it sounds considerably better here than it does in a church. Ordinarily, I'm not a great fan of classical singing, but here there is only a small amount, and actually it fits well with the storyline. Overall, I think it's a fine album from start to finish. 9. Speak Thou Vast and Venerable Head by Lulu York from 2024. The past 30 or so years, a friend and I have regularly done exchanges of albums we've got where there might be some common interest. Speak Thou Vast and Venerable Head was one such album I borrowed. Lulu York is an artist whose speciality is modular synthesizers. I've borrowed quite a few albums from other artists with a similar approach, but a lot of them, to my ears, seem a little bit too much in awe of Tangerine Dream. So when I first listened to this album, it was really pleasing to hear somebody with a slightly different take, hence I bought it. Oscillators and sequencers are almost a trademark of modular synth music, but Lulu York creates something that has a warmer and more subtly melodic sound than many of her contemporaries. It's a very easy listen, and with 6 tracks lasting around 44 minutes in total, it doesn't outstay its welcome. 8. Other Like Me by The Black Dog from 2024. This was the first of 2 full-length album releases by The Black Dog in 2024, the other entitled Sleep Deprivation. Their previous 4 albums had focused on their external surroundings in Sheffield, especially the brutalist architecture. Other Like Me is more an exploration of internal space and in particular mental health. It's a fairly dark subject, which probably accounts for melody being at a premium. That having been said, the scarcity of melody makes it all the more effective when it does come into the foreground on the title track as well as on For Real and Dressed Up Auslander. The real strength of this album lies in its rhythmic structures and sonic textures on tracks such as Imposter Syndrome, Mark Up, and a clutch of others. There are 17 tracks on the album in total. The Black Dog have become quite prolific in recent years, and for their fans, it's great that quality hasn't been sacrificed for the sake of quantity. Number 7, Gree by Dr. John, the Night Tripper from 1968. I decided to listen to this as a result of it being included in a weekly album exchange series on the Canadian Stud Muffins YouTube channel, and was impressed enough to buy it. This has a great combination of New Orleans blues, jazz, psychedelia, and tribal music. When you throw in the subject matter of the lyrics as well, it's like stumbling upon a voodoo ritual taking place at midnight in a mist-cloaked graveyard somewhere in the Louisiana bayou, sort of. At 33 minutes long, it's pretty short, but there's some excellent stuff on it. I Walk on Gilded Splinters is probably the most well-known song, having been covered by the likes of Marsha Hunt, Humble Pie, and Paul Weller. Other tracks of note include Gree Gumbo Ya Ya and Dance Kalinda Badoom. Mummaroo and Jump Sturdy are more sing-along types of tracks that provide a lighter air on an album with no duff tracks on it at all. 6. Godspeed at States End by Godspeed You Black Emperor from 2021. Occasionally, instead of buying online, I go to a local record shop to hunt for any vinyl albums I might like which never made it onto CD. On one such occasion, unable to find anything I was interested in, I saw this CD and bought it rather than go home empty handed. I was a little underwhelmed by Luciferian Towers, the previous Godspeed You Black Emperor album, and started to wonder whether they were past their best. Fortunately, Godspeed at States End proved my fears to be unfounded, as I think it's a big improvement on Luciferian Towers. 4 tracks in total, with 2 of them being what I think of as typically epic and uplifting Godspeed You Black Emperor tracks, and 2 shorter, more plaintive ones. The longer tracks, which also have very long names, so I'll truncate them, are A Military Alphabet and Government Came, and both illustrate that when in full flow, the band are like a force of nature, and this album, on the whole, is a welcome return to form. It's like prog rock without the egos, and it's helped by production that veers towards lo-fi more than polished perfectionism. 5. Jewellery by Mikachu from 2009. How to describe this album? Wonky and playful pop to put a smile on your face. There's a distinctly cut and paste type sound to a lot of what's on this album, and it's executed extremely well with a dash of chaos thrown in to keep the listener on their toes. After 2 or 3 listens, what started off sounding like bewildering and occasionally frantic noise ends up as merely being a component of some really catchy tunes. Vulture, Eat Your Heart, Calculator, Ship, and Curly Teeth are a few examples. I'm not sure who Mikachu considers as influences, but for me, hearing this album brought Solex to mind, as well as the absurd humour that can be found on the lo-fi recordings of Baby Bird. If you discount the silence leading up to the hidden track at the end, Jewellery clocks in at just over 33 minutes long, so another short album, but that hardly matters when crammed with tracks as interesting as what's on offer here. 4. Mainstream by Lloyd Cole and the Commotions from 1987. Another vinyl hunting expedition yielded success when I bought this album. Not that it was in pristine condition, it required quite a bit of cleaning up using Audacity before I could digitise it. I digress. This is the 3rd and final album by Lloyd Cole and the Commotions, and it's a great example of 80s indie pop with smart, mostly melancholic lyrics. From the Hippies, an example, as is 29, which dwells on the subject of approaching 30 years of age. A big deal when you're in your 20s, I seem to recall. Sean Penn Blues Riley muses on the intricacies of life in the Madonna household, and Mr. Malcontent is in part a homage to the film My Beautiful Laundrette. All the songs are very nicely crafted with typically jangly guitar, but what really stands out for me on this album is Blair Cowan's keyboards. The keyboards here create uncommon depth and texture for 80s pop. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Blair Cowan had Cluster or Brian Eno amongst his influences. Final track these days is a real gem and a fitting conclusion to the band's relatively brief existence. 3. Eligible Bachelors Deluxe Edition by the Monochrome Set from 2018, originally released in 1982. In my Under the Radar 1980s video, I referred to this album by the Monochrome Set and its qualities. With the deluxe edition, there are also discs containing singles and B-sides, sessions, demos, and rarities, some of which were previously available on the Volume Contrast Brilliance compilations from the early 1980s. Plus, there's the live album Finn from the mid-1980s. This is a fantastic package. I have no qualms about repeating how great I think this Source album is. Excellent jangly guitar, new wave pop with witty and clever lyrics, plus a couple of instrumentals, March of the Eligible Bachelors and the Great Barrier Riff. The additional material includes top tracks like He's Frank, Strange Boutique, Fallout, Love Zombies, and Alphaville. Some box sets or deluxe editions can be stupidly priced. This one, released by Cherry Red, you can get for under 25 quid, including delivery. In fact, I paid just under 20 quid due to it being included in a sale at the time, a snip at either price. 2. Passion, music for The Last Temptation of Christ by Peter Gabriel from 1989. There are a couple of reasons why it took me until 2024 to buy this album. The first is that it was put forward on the YouTube album exchange I spoke of earlier, which prompted me to listen to it for the first time. The second is that past experience tells me that Peter Gabriel albums can be a hit or miss, and because of that, I'm not too motivated to seek his albums out. As luck would have it, this falls into the hit category. A superb blend of ambience and world music, the majority of which is instrumental. To make this album, Peter Gabriel brought in some musicians who were well established figures within Middle Eastern and African music, plus many others who are similarly all but unknown in Western Europe and America. Rhythmic tracks are well represented by The Feeling Begins, Troubled, Of These Hope, and A Different Drum, whereas tracks like Open and Wall of Breath are more ambient and use single note drones as the canvas for other instrumentation to paint over. I've not seen the film, so I can't say how good a fit the music is, but what I can say with certainty is that I think this is a terrific album. Number 1, Covert 4 by Anonymous Various Artists from 2023. Usually I tend to think of various artists' albums as background music rather than ones to attentively listen to. There are exceptions though, and this is one. Covert 4 is listed as being by anonymous various artists because guess what? The names of the artists or composers are not shown. Why? Covert 4 is on the Touched Music for Macmillan Cancer Support label, so given its status as a good cause, artistic egos are secondary, plus anonymity gives the listener the fun of trying to work out who performed each track. The label specialises in ambient electronic / IDM music, and this double CD has 21 tracks, which consists of 10 tracks with an early to mid 1990s sound, and then 10 tracks with a more late 1990s, early noughties feel, and they all pivot around the atmospheric 11th track entitled Manchester Grey, which sounds bang up to date. There's some great stuff on here which brings to mind artists like The Future Sound of London, Boards of Canada, Orteka, The Black Dog, Plaid, Aphex Twin and Yumino. Maybe some of them are contributors, or maybe there are some artists capable of more than passable impersonations. Either way, who cares? There are so many excellent tracks here that a fan of any of the aforementioned artists can't go wrong with this. An outstanding compilation. There we are. It turns out that I've picked 5 from this century and 5 from the 20th. If I were asked to rank my favourite 10 albums bought in 2024 in 6 months' time, I'm sure there would be some differences. That's the way it goes when you buy lots of stuff. I didn't end up buying a great deal of dub, reggae, heavy rock, krautrock, or vintage electronic music in 2024, so that provides me with a few targets for additions in 2025. The little graphic above shows the usual subscribe, comment, etc. type suggestions. And finally, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching.